Hi guys, today I want to show you some more pivoting. I'm going to show you 6 pivoting to change the dart area on your basic block. We're going to start with that simple one where we're going to transfer the 2 dart of the bodice into the top part of the armhole. When you do pivoting, remember that simple rule is that you never trace twice over the same contour line. I will start where I want to send my dart, so in the armhole right here, and trace along the contour, pivoting the dart or closing the dart before continuing, and all the way to the waist dart, and then close the waist dart and continue the tracing until where I want my dart to be. We're now going to trace it. Usually we shorten the dart, find the middle, and move it on the middle line. Move the pivot about 2 cm or 2.5 centimeter, and you retrace your new dart. And of course the poncho is another centimeter up. Then you close it to get your jog. So you're going to get this pattern here, that if you see my closure, the back of the dart is towards the bottom, and you get the jog that match with your folding. So for the second one, we're going to pivot the shoulder dart at one place and the waist dart at another place in direction of the center front, so you could make this nice style. For the second pivoting, we're going to find a mark for the pivoting reference point at center front from the top and from the bottom. I'm going to start my tracing from the bottom mark and go all the way to the top mark. This is going to be the area where it's on the fold of the fabric. Then we start the pivoting. I'm going to just mark the second side of the dart and close the shoulder dart. So only the notch, and I close it. Then I could continue my tracing towards the top, and then I close, but this time the other way around, and I continue my tracing of the top. And then this time I'm going to close towards the side seam to open the bottom dart and trace the little corner I'm missing. So we have 2 openings on the center front. We're just going to connect with the pivot, the original pivot, to make sure that it's all in one piece. We're going to move again the pivot for each dart, one towards the bottom and one towards the top. Retrace our dart, and of course put the poncho another centimeter inside the dart. Now you could see your final pattern. Center front is on fold, and you have the dart, the new dart that are fold with the back of the dart towards the bottom for both of them. So for the third one, we're going to send both dart into the neckline and make it 3 darts, so we distribute the total of the 2 and make it 3. For the third one, on your block you're going to mark the position of the middle dart, so the middle one of the 3, and also 1 on each side. And you're going to start tracing at the first one, but also you mark the middle one, maybe just a dot, because we'll need it to measure. So you trace all around, closing the waist dart, the third, 1, 2, 3, and again a little dot on the middle one. You're now going to measure the total of the two darts, so the opening from the dot to the dot where you start. So I got 4.7 because I'm in half scale, and you're going to divide that by 3. Then you're going to mark the 1/3 from the top one, so 1.56, 1/3 over here and 1/3 on the other side. Then you're going to put back your block on at the apex, and you're going to open your dart. So first third of the dart I'm going to open until my 1/3. 1/3 is there. So you put it back at the original and you do your opening. That's going to allow you to trace until the center. Do the same thing on the other side. So I place my shoulder back in position and I'm going to open until my first third. So you could see. And I'm going to trace until first third and trace until the middle. We just have to connect each side of the 3 dart to the apex. So we have our 3 dart and you're going to shorten them. So you get your pattern. Usually the vertical dart, you send the back of the dart towards the center. Just like that. The next one is both dart pivot at the center front, and I was able to manage to keep the top part on fold. So first thing we do is we trace a 90-degree line from center front touching the apex, and you're going to start tracing from there towards the top or towards the bottom. This time I'm doing on top. Closing shoulder dart. And continue tracing until this square line that we start with. So both darts are now at the center front. Again, find the middle and shorten the dart about 2 cm. You could trace the new one a little shorter. And I suggest that you just elongate the top part of the center front to make sure your pattern doesn't exceed that line. So you'll be able to put the top part on fold and put your seam allowance on the bottom part. In that case, I decide to empty the dart because when you do the two combined, you get a very wide space. So instead of doing a jog, you could add seam allowance to each side. So here's the final pattern, and this time you will be able to send your seam allowance one direction or the other because it's a small amount of fabric. For the number 5, I'm going to pivot the shoulder dart on the side and also the waist dart on the side a little bit below. For this one, on your block, you could trace a line where you want the first dart, and what I want to do for this one, I want to make the dart, the second one, parallel. So I'm going to trace a parallel line, a little bit shorter, and you could connect it with the apex. For this one, we'll do a little bit different. You're going to start by tracing the middle of the 2 new darts, and you're going to mark the second side of the waist dart, and then pivot right away to close the waist dart. Remember that area is not traced, so we will trace it. That's going to send the waist dart into the bottom opening. Then put it back to the original position and continue tracing from this dart, from this notch. Continue tracing until shoulder dart. And then you close that shoulder dart and trace until the first or the top dart that we want. To get the parallel angle of the bottom dart, you're going to put it back at the original position, so middle of the two darts, and you're going to point at the angle and then close the waist dart again and mark it again. So that gives us 2 points, and the pivot of the dart will be right in the middle, so you could trace the bottom dart, and you could trace also the top dart, but this one you're going to shorten it pretty much the same length as the bottom one. Retrace, and last, put your punch hole a centimeter inside. You get your final pattern. Remember to close the dart with the back towards the bottom, and this time, since we changed the angle, you're going to have to retrace the side seam with a nice soft line. For today's last one, we're going to send both darts on the center front and make it 3 little darts parallel. On your block, you already have the 90-degree line from the center front touching the pivot. You're going to trace 1 down and 1 up, even distance. This is going to be the direction of the 2 other little darts. You could, if you want, trace it all the way to the apex, but we're going to make the dart shorter, so that's why I made it a little bit inside. We're going to do pretty much what we did for the 3 darts at the neck. We're going to start tracing at the bottom one, but I'm going to dot the middle line because that's where I'll be measuring. So I'm starting tracing there and closing the waist dart and trace until the top one, but dot the middle line. You're now going to measure from one dot to the other dot. That's the total amount of the dart. It looks smaller just because it's on a shorter area, so I have 2.3, and you're going to divide that by 3. Now, like we did last time, we're going to put 1/3 from the bottom, so 1/3 here minus 0.75, and 1/3 from the top opening, and you're going to put back your block on apex, original position, top or bottom, and I'm going to ask you to point the length of your dart, open by 1/3, point again, then trace that little part that we never did until the center line. Then you go from the top, original position, point the length of your dart, open 1/3, point again, and trace until the center line. So for the tracing, you're going to find the middle point of the bottom dart, middle point of the top dart, and you could even trace a line so you get the length for the middle one. So I'm going to trace my new dart. Now you could see the pattern. Always fold back of the dart towards the bottom. So at this point you should be folding the 3 darts and do a line correction as small as you can to make it a nice soft center front line. That's it for today. I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and Instagram, and I see you next time.